Tara Woodlee, and I'd like to welcome you to our episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors, where we take a hard look at what it means to be a survivor of domestic abuse and hear from survivors their stories. And today I have Christine Fry. She is not only a board member here at Break the Silence, but she's a survivor of 49 years from domestic violence and sexual assault. She has been free from the struggles for 6 years and devoted to empowering those on their healing journey. And she is a #1 selling Amazon book out there called Quiet Badass. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to this. So, so Christine, why don't you tell us just a little bit about like your background and what made you write your book?
I was born and raised in a family full of domestic violence and alcoholism and sexual abuse. So after going through that, I ran away from home. I took the last beating from my dad. Ran away with a guy I married who was just like my dad. So 12 years of domestic violence and all that. I thought I'd have a couple kids in the mix. You know, that's what you do.
Oh, yeah.
I had him arrested. He went to jail. So I married another one, just like him. He died from alcoholism, end-stage liver disease from alcoholism and drug abuse 6 years ago. It'll be 7. So when he died, I realized I was finally free, and I didn't know what that meant. And it was scary and exciting at the same time. And it gave me the space to, even though it was uncomfortable, gave me the space to realize I need to start taking care of me and why I have these habits, thoughts, patterns, and beliefs. And it's been hard, but it's been exciting. And I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, and driving home from work one day, I clearly heard God tell me to move to Colorado. I have no friends or family in Colorado. I knew nothing about it, but I knew I had to listen because when he spoke, I knew I needed to. So I was just newly married, my first sober, safe relationship ever. I went home and I told my husband just like this. I said, I'm moving to Colorado with or without you. And I did. We did. And we came out here and I hit the ground running to be a proponent of people getting education and information and breaking the stigma of the things they don't like to talk about. And that's why I'm glad I'm joining you today to get this word out there and to create more awareness of that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. It takes a lot of courage to just pick up everything and start anew, but especially, you know, when you get that calling, I think it really energizes you in a way that you don't expect. It makes you have to move, right?
Right. It puts things in perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And so I know that there's a lot of people out there who have experienced that. So I always tell them, if you hear that calling, you gotta go. You gotta do it. So absolutely.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors shop is now open. This is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but let everyone else know that you will not be silent on this very important issue. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab swag, head to store.breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. I can't say enough how much we appreciate you and that the organization is blessed by your generosity. We hope you enjoy the rest of this episode and you continue to subscribe to our podcast. Thank you.
So your book, tell me just a little bit about what your experience was like writing that Quiet Badass. That's a great title.
I'm a co-author in that book, and a lady was snooping me for a while because I do healing work with people on the side. And she was snooping me for a while. And then she reached out and she asked if I wanted to do it. And I was scared and excited. I prayed on it and I said, what the heck? So my chapter is called "I Almost Died Twice Because I Almost Did" by strangulation.
Right.
And I put everything out in that book. It was scary and exciting. And as soon as you hit send, all you can do is pray on it. And I was thinking, I wasn't too scared of it because I knew I have God on my side. But I was thinking, what are people going to say? What if people don't believe me? I don't give a hoot. I don't care. That book has been amazing because some of the other chapters too were amazing, of course, from other women. But my
Yes.
chapter is the one that really made me realize, you know what, this is about putting it forward and letting people know, even though my circumstances are different than theirs, there can be a change, there can be life, there can be survivorship, and people that know you and love you and support you. And that's what it
Mhm.
was about. That's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's very powerful. When you were going through those circumstances, because I know we're fixing to, when this airs, we will be in a month where we're talking about strangulation awareness and stuff. And I know a lot of people out there, I didn't realize this until I started my advocacy work, that if you're strangled during a domestic violence incident, they say that those survivors were like 72% more likely to actually have died in their incident. And I don't think people are aware of that when you're in it,
Mm-mm.
right? You don't think that, but sometimes they do that, during the incident itself. Were you convinced he was going to kill you in that moment?
Oh, absolutely. Both times. The first time I knew, and I came back, thank goodness. The second time when it happened, I knew again, but it was different because I knew I was more crossed over than the first time, if that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
knew. And I at the same time when I was in Pennsylvania, I was working in the safe houses, doing the safe lines and doing all that stuff, and this stuff's happening. And then I would read the statistics and it just didn't click. None of it
Right.
clicked until I was out. And then you realize the statistics. I'm so grateful I didn't die, but it took me 2 times to go through that before I realized it. And I'm thinking, wait, if we can help somebody else realize that this is not cool, this is a thing that happens, don't have shame about it. It's
Right.
so empowering on that level, you know.
Mhm. No, and it's definitely, strangulation. Domestic violence is so personal as it is
Mhm.
anyway, but I think strangulation is even more so
Mhm.
the control of. Normally, I always felt like your abuser, when they're hitting you, of course, it's all about power and control and stuff. But when it moves on to that strangulation, it's literally like a control of your life or death, not just
Exactly.
to get you to do what I want you to do.
Exactly.
And it heightens the experience and the fact that this could end more tragically than you ever thought before.
Exactly.
So,
And
oh
I'm paying
yeah.
for it now. I have throat and neck damage. And when you go through this stuff, you don't think about it. Like I didn't. My body took beatings for 49 years. Now I'm feeling the effects of it, you know. And when it comes to the neck and the throat, I had a thyroid issue that came up. And I love, I pray on everything. And I asked what this was about. Part of it was keeping myself quiet, playing small and all that stuff. I have physical damage from that.
Right.
So I try to let women know this is a big deal. You can have physical damage from this. And it is very personal. And that's a big deal to get this word out there with all of DV, but especially with the strangulation too. That's
Mhm.
sad. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very important. So, what do you think are some of the misunderstood factors that keep people from leaving?
For one, they're scared, but a lot of people play small, like, it's happening to a lot of people, or we don't talk about that. There's a lot of shame, or what a lot of I did. And I notice a lot of the people I know do is, I don't deserve to be on that side. I can't do that. What if I fail again? What if, all that stuff. And it keeps you stuck. And then if you grow up with it, that's all you know. So if all
Right.
you know is the dysfunction and the danger, you're good at surviving. You're really good at surviving. And that's what's interesting about my marriage now is I don't have to hide my keys and my money, and I'm not scared. It took a long time, and he was very patient. He was never with somebody who went through all this, and he's very patient still. But he was very patient at the time. I had to keep locking the doors and doing this and doing that, and I don't have to do those things. And it's realizing, wait, that's not who I have to be anymore. I have the last half of my life to live in thriving, whatever that means, and to step forward and to really help people. To step up, put on my big girl panties, be brave, and be quiet and badass. That's what it's
Right.
about. Mhm.
Oh yeah. Amen. Well, and I know what it's like to have that, to actually go from, as well, to go from that kind of abuse. You're used to that
Mhm.
never ending chaos because you
Mhm.
grew up in it. And then, so you pick that in a relationship, and
Mhm.
it is really hard to, even when you find a good relationship,
Mhm.
to move yourself out of that chaos,
Mhm.
right? So
That's where
I
you have to,
remember.
it's
Go
where you
ahead.
have to really work on yourself. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, you really do, because um, my husband loves to tell the story of our first big fight when we, after we were married, because I'm 5'2" and he's 6'2", and and I'm used to that. My first husband was like 6'1",
Mhm.
and so we're arguing, and he tells people she got red in the face, and she got all with her fist clenched, like just ready for the fight. And he looked at me and went, "You're so cute," grabbed me by the shoulders and kissed me, and I went, "What do I do with this?"
It's so odd, but it's true.
I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. I've never experienced anything like that before. And when you're so used to like
Mhm.
being in the middle of that kind of chaos, and the fight is always on and stuff, it's really hard to break that cycle.
It is
So,
hard, and that's surviving, that's reacting. And then as you start to heal, have those safe, emotionally mature people around you, get therapy, talk about the hard, the bad, the ugly stuff, you learn how to pause and respond. Because then
mhm.
then you can be more centered in yourself, and you feel so empowered about that. Because you do catch yourself like, wait, this is what healthy is. This is what healthy feels like. It's odd and it's exciting at the same time.
Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes, like, we internalize so many different things while we're going through that abuse, and you totally put yourself in this bubble, in a way of like, I grew up with boy cousins that were twins, so getting physical, playing with each other was the norm, and so to turn around and have it come physical back, it was always put back into, that's your fault. You brought
Mhm.
this, and
Mhm.
and you just kind of, you go with it because you think, does he? This can't be. He just overdid it or something, because we were playing or something, or it would turn so ugly so quick, and you just. Yeah, for me, I misunderstood, and I guess I wanted to put it over into this framework of more like this experience I had with young boys, my cousins, compared to my marriage. And
Mhm.
um, I think these are still common misconceptions from what I hear from people out there as well, that they misunderstand what abuse really is because of their upbringing. So,
Exactly. You don't trust your intuition because how
mhm,
can you? You're surviving. You're trying to get through every minute of every day. And then when you step into thriving, you start to hear your intuition, and you don't understand it at first. You don't believe it. And that takes time and patience and love with yourself. And a lot of
mhm.
faith and trust to start listening and really hearing what that your intuition has to say, that piece of you. That's soft. That's amazing. It's soft and powerful.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of isolation that goes with it as you're going through it, um, and loneliness, and um,
Grief.
so yeah, grief. There's a lot of different emotions, and like, how do you feel that like impacted you and impacts other survivors as well?
It impacts a lot because you're used to.
Hmm.
And like I said, it's really odd because I just went through life. I put on a happy face. I had the same job for 20 years. I loved it, went to work. Really, not many people had any ideas what was going on. And it's hard because you have that mask on and it's exhausting.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you're driving home, you're like, oh, what kind of baloney's going to hit the fan today? And to realize that that's not how people have to live is it's so foreign. I'm still in therapy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of soul work and a lot of tears and praying and feeling the hard emotions, the grief and the loss, and really sitting with yourself and realizing that you are a survivor. And especially when you survive these things, like I said, I almost died twice. You realize, wait, my life is so much more than all that. It's about
Mhm.
serving. I'm very faithful. I love God and Jesus. It's about moving forward with that faith and trust and knowing that that's what you got, because you can inspire somebody, put that little light in her heart and let
Right.
her know she's not alone and that she is heard and valued and she doesn't have to explain herself. That's what it's about, is that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we just had our Holidays of Hope program going on, and our one director of the families here at Break the Silence was telling me that she told one of the moms in a text message that I'm proud of you for surviving, and she came back and told her, start crying, and told her, no one has ever said that to me, ever.
Oh.
Is it? And I thought, how sad is that, that no
Mhm.
one even in your family had, and I thought about it, and that didn't happen with my family either. I know they're proud of me and stuff, but they don't, where I am today, but they don't say it sometimes. And I think a lot of times, survivors, we tend to need to hear that. Um, and
Absolutely.
you,
Mhm.
yeah, usually it has to come from your own community though, because nobody else understands what it took,
Mhm.
you know?
Exactly. And that's why the things that you do in this group or this organization is amazing, because no matter if they're seeing it online or they're talking to somebody, whatever that is, they're watching this, they're not alone, but something that's said or that they're going to see is going to hit them in that heart, create that change in some way. And it might not be today, but somewhere down the line. And that's so very important.
Right.
I believe that. When I had the book Quiet and Badass come out, it was interesting because my brothers and sisters, they're still in denial. They don't talk about too much. But my aunt, my father's sister reached out, and my cousins reached out, and they said my aunt apologized. She knew a lot of this was happening, but nobody talked about it or did anything. So she
Mhm.
apologized, and I didn't see a need for that. She did it. She did what she did. It's over. But they're embracing it and they're honoring it, and they bought copies of the book and they're giving it to people that need help. She helps with the DV center out in North Carolina, and she's giving people the book. And I'm like, that's what it's about. You don't have to
Right.
understand it or any of that stuff. Just be a good person and put that out, because you never know in what way you could touch somebody.
No, absolutely. And it's the little things
Hmm.
that mean a lot. So like um let's just touch on, like, for families, what can they do? I mean, what was the things that would have been good, that or somebody did do well when you were kind of isolated, that helped you? Was there anything in particular?
Pulled me aside and said, do you want to go have a cup of coffee? Like, maybe not touch the elephant in the room, but just be with somebody. Just sit with them and be with them and let them be who they want to be. Have a cup of coffee, take that walk. I try to tell people, if you know your family member struggling, go find help for yourself. So go
Mhm.
look at a certain, like, website, like your website, find tools for yourself, because that person might not be open to hearing it yet. She might not be ready, but have those tools, because that could come up in a conversation. You could hear her say that thing, and then you'll have that remembering of, hey, wait, I just learned something. To learn all you can about helping yourself, I think, is so important through that, because that creates the ripples through the family.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Letting people
and
take
it's,
care of themselves.
yeah, it's always good to leave that door open,
Exactly.
right?
If you
And
don't know
that
what
way
to
they
say,
can
it's
walk.
okay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they can walk through it. So it's always good to leave that door open.
Because it's an
So,
uncomfortable subject and there's a lot of denial, shame, and guilt with it.
oh
But when
yeah,
you learn how to take those tools for yourself, in some way that's going to help. And that's so important.
absolutely. So as a community, what can we do to help these kind of situations? To help, I know people are always like, shelter, that's the immediate response. Shelter, shelter, that's how communities usually help, and shelters are
Mhm.
great. um but I mean, here at Break the Silence, that's part of where we decided that what do you do after the shelter as a community for
Exactly.
people, right? So, what are your thoughts on how we create a more supportive community, especially like after the crisis?
I think awareness and outreach, it doesn't happen so much where I live right now, which is really frustrating to me. But in Pennsylvania, I was doing all kinds of outreach. I volunteered at the Woman's Place for years, and I would go all over where they wanted me to talk. I didn't care. I'd give out brochures and yak about it and talk about it. I'm having a really hard time here. I know we're working. Something's going to come through with that here where I live. But creating that awareness in the outreach, and let's talk about that subject. Let's find a quiet space to sit and talk, that safe space. We don't have that where I live, and I know a lot of communities don't. That's frustrating to me because that's what makes people feel alienated and alone, and that shouldn't be that way. And when you come out of somewhere, you come out of a safe house, I think you need tools. You need more than
Right.
housing and food. You need tools to pick up your life again. And how do you do that if you've never been able to take care of yourself? You've been surviving all these years, and then you have a couple kids in the mix. That's a big deal to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, especially when kids are in the mix, because
Oh
the
my
kids
gosh.
need the help too,
Hmm.
because they're the silent survivors that a lot of
Hmm.
people tend to forget about. I mean, I'm guilty of that as a mother. I
Hmm.
thought, they saw me getting help, they saw me doing this, so we didn't need to talk much about that. And it was so wrong,
Hmm.
that there was things that affected my children, and things still. My adult surviving child is she still struggles at
Hmm.
34 years old and has issues. And um, I think that having that open dialogue about that, uh, that it's okay for parents to have these conversations, but it's also okay to get your children the help that they need. They may seem fine,
Exactly. Hmm.
but somewhere in the back of their head, they have seen and heard too much. They're not going to be fine. Later on, it's going to come out.
Oh, exactly. One of my favorite things, it's in my wallet. It's all tattered and torn. I got from a Woman's Place because I went and got help so many times before I finally had enough. Before I had enough when I divorced that first one. Is I raised two kids. Well, I raised six kids actually. I had four stepchildren and two of my own. So I mainly had my own. So I raised these boys, and I have a pamphlet that they gave me. Today, these boys saw something they'll never forget. It shows the fear. It makes me want to cry. Shows the fear in these little boys' eyes. I raised my kids through all that stuff. Now they're adults and they're a hot mess. I see my older son in a relationship that's not healthy and safe. He's staying in it, and I can see he's mirroring the same things that I did. I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to push through it, all that stuff. That's why you have to break the cycle. And I think schools have to say something about this. There has to be a way to make this more approachable because it is happening. I was
Mhm.
wetting my pants when I was in elementary school. Now I know it's from the sexual abuse and all the other stuff. All this stuff happens. And I know I wasn't the only little girl going through that stuff. And like I said, I see my sons going through this, and it's so hard because it's something you didn't talk about. You still don't talk about it. There's such shame and guilt, and kids can't talk about it with their friends. And it just shouldn't be this difficult. It should be an open conversation.
Right.
Look at the statistics right there between girls and boys. So it's a thing. If you can
Mhm.
talk about other stuff, there's no reason we can't talk about this.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely.
How many
Um,
children and families can you help by having a 10-minute conversation, whatever that is?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And especially since we know that a lot of times it goes into children's dating lives as teenagers as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And if you're not having, they want to talk so much to kids about other things when they're younger. Why not this conversation?
Right.
It's crucial because they're already, you see them at. I have a little granddaughter who's 10 years, fixing to be 10 years old this next month, and already the boys, will you be my girlfriend and
Mhm.
all of that, and having those conversations with kids about what relationships really mean. I remember that too as a kid. I had no clue what that it was. I just knew
Mhm.
that I wanted a boy to like me. and I didn't have to be their girlfriend for them to like me,
Mhm.
right? So, and I don't think we're having those conversations of what a real relationship, what does that really mean?
Exactly, because people find worth in other people. How can you find worth in yourself if you're not taught that or what that means?
Mhm.
If people they know their worth, it'd be a much healthier relationship.
Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah. And so there's so many children. So I was one of those children that grew up thinking I was worthless. And so helping children, I think, also in those needs and those programs raise healthier adults as well. Because that was my whole mindset was, I deserved all this because I was
Mhm.
worthless. I wasn't as
Mhm.
good as so and so. I wasn't
Mhm.
as good as a sibling. I wasn't as good as, this person or that person. And
And you're never going to be. Yeah,
yeah.
that's crazy.
That's one of the things I love about being in my 50s because I really don't give a crap no more what anybody thinks
Exactly.
about that. But I remember it was everything when I was a kid and in my teens and even into my 20s. My worth was wrapped up in my children, my husband, and not in y- it wasn't in the fact that what I could do had value.
Mhm.
What I had to offer to people had value. I thought my value was tied up in what I could give to others, which is a great thing.
Mhm.
Giving to
Mhm.
others, it is,
Mhm.
but it didn't make me who I am. It's a result of who I am inside,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And a big part of that's the financial. Like when you asked earlier about why people stay, the financial is a big deal.
Oh yeah.
Because those of us who were born and raised in that, like I was told, women don't make money. You're never going to make money. My dad made my mom quit so many jobs to stay home with us. And I never realized these things till I was older. And it's amazing that because that's still in me. And it's a hard thing to work through. Like, who am I
Mhm,
to think I can support myself and make a living, or I'm not worthy of that? That's a hard thing, especially for
mhm.
survivors, to believe that you can do that. You have the capacity to do that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think that starts, at the very basic levels too, because that's one of the
Exactly.
things that was great about. I heard that a lot with my mother's relationships, the various times she was married. But my grandfather was always. My grandmother stayed at home and took care of the house, but he was always one that was, this is our money, not my money. This is our money. And I see that in my husband now. Even we just had this with our granddaughters. We were out shopping and the granddaughters went, well, thank you, Papa, because we know Mama's buying it, but it's your money. And he goes, don't you think your grandmother makes money? And they're like, well, yeah, but you make more. And he goes, well, it's our money. Even if your mama didn't make a dime, this is our money.
Perfect.
And he actually took the time to sit down with them, and they're, like I said, fixing to be 10 and 7, and said, you know, this is what you wanted in a relationship. You remember this always. You want a young man who's going to look at you with value, and that everything that comes in is y'all's, not
Exactly.
they are the breadwinner, they are the money maker,
Mhm.
and you don't have any value. And I was like, well, it was so, it made me cry because I was like,
Mhm.
number one, I know I chose the right man, but these are so many conversations that fathers especially can have with their daughters. It
Exactly.
can make all the world a difference.
How perfect of him to catch that moment that happened, to sit with them and inspire them, because it's truth. Because a lot of women, a lot of people, a lot of survivors do relate themselves to their self-worth and finances. Perfect lesson there to really create change.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and it can start as small as that.
Exactly.
So, and so if we just expand upon that as a community as well,
Mhm.
um not just within our homes, I think it could create a whole lot of change.
I
um
agree.
yeah, absolutely. So um in wrapping this up, what would you say to survivors out there from your experience?
And surround yourself with those safe, emotionally mature people that you don't have to over explain yourself to. And you can be yourself and give yourself time. That's the biggest thing. A lot of us are so critical of ourselves and judgmental, and we go back to the other versions of us that we're still healing through.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women, a lot of my clients have a hard time with that, is validating themselves. You don't have to love her or like her, but all those pieces of yourself, because today you're still here. You're still a survivor that's kicking butt, no matter what that means, right? And it's letting them know that they're not alone, that they deserve those things, those people to be with them, that they can just be, they can just cry, and nobody wants, they don't have to be fixed, or they're not broken. They're people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to have this human experience. It is hard. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Part of the human experience, I like to liken it to, there's various times in myself that I didn't like myself
mhm,
or what was happening and
mhm,
everything, but if I embrace those parts of it,
mhm,
it's in the bigger picture made
mhm.
me today, and I do
Exactly.
like myself today.
Exactly.
And then it motivates me to like myself tomorrow and the next day, and to create the atmosphere where all these little girls that are running around me see that, because I think that was part of the problem in my issue in growing up too, was I didn't see that in the
Mhm,
women around me, that
mhm.
they were all struggling and having those issues too, of finding self-worth and liking themselves. So trying to set that example,
Exactly. That's
I think
perfect.
is crucial.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's one reason I like Break the Silence, is because I do learn a lot about DV, and I love working with DV and all sex assault and all that. But the reason I like Break the Silence is because you're also walking the walk. There's a lot of places out there that just talk a bunch of stuff, and they're not really helping people with that. And when people reach out for help, they're not getting responses, or they feel like they're falling through the cracks, which makes them only feel like they're really that much more unworthy. And to be honest, your group, the Break the Silence, is about empowerment and about really listening to that person and being there for her or him, and being walking with them, not just saying, here you go, and letting them go. You're with them, and it's 24/7. They can
Mhm.
always look at the website or whatever that is, the Facebook page. That's what's empowering. So even in the middle of the night, if you think you're the only one, you have powerful words on there. And that's what it's about. And that's one reason I appreciate you as an organization. It's because you're really walking the walk. And that's huge.
No, I think so. I love to challenge people in the work in different shelters and crisis centers and stuff. They are doing an admirable work. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm,
but I think that they have to put into mindset sometimes of, um, we don't take our military people without putting them through boot camp and throw a gun into their hand and throw them on a beachhead and say, here you go, have at it. And I think that's what we do with survivors. We give them, like this one tool and go, here, have at it, and you're at it, survive this, here you go. At least we gave you this, right?
exactly.
And there's more needed than that.
They need tools and aftercare. There's support groups. Where I live, they're kind of few and far between, but there are support groups even online. That's
Mhm.
what they need, is to be with other people, because you're going to hear that one thing that you might have been struggling on, didn't even know you were looking for. You're going to see that written down somewhere. I agree
Mhm.
completely. Aftercare is so important.
Yes, it actually, I think it's the most important once you're out
I
of the
agree.
crisis, because
I agree.
the first year especially is just, um, you struggle so much during that time, even with thoughts of going back. And
Oh,
if you don't have
absolutely.
that support system, that's what the statistics say, seven times, that's the average that a woman goes back 7 times. So um, that's why I think that support system is so crucial.
It
And
is.
I would love
It
to
is.
see that number drop. for sure.
Mhm.
So
There's a lot of
absolutely.
support. There's a lot of support systems for different things. AA, NA, love all of it, right?
Mhm,
We need more for this, and I
mhm.
don't know why there isn't. And it just shouldn't be such a stigma about that. Let people be together and meet and just be together, because you're right. I had PFAs. I don't even know how many PFAs I had against both husbands, and I still went back.
Right,
You just don't know what you don't know. And if you feel like you're alone, you're like, oh, what's the point? Just go back into whatever you're doing, because
right.
it's all you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anybody who's watching, that's what Christine and I are here to tell you. There is life after. And it's a great life too. You
Mhm.
can have a really great life. It takes some work. And you are worth it. That is for sure.
Mhm.
So anything else, Christine, you want to say before we go?
No, I thank you, because you have such a brave face and a brave heart to deal with this stuff, and to be with it, and to put your face out there, and to be bold and quiet and badass. I think that's you too. To do your work, because quiet means you're not reacting, you're responding, you're pausing and responding, right? And the
Right.
badass is just going out there and doing it. I appreciate that with you very much, and
Oh,
the whole organization.
I appreciate you, Christine. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Well, this concludes our episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. Um, if you need to reach out to us, you can check out our website, which is www.breakthesilencedv.org. We also have a Facebook page, same name. We're on Twitter, and our YouTube channel, which we're putting out videos and shorts that have information that can help you go to that next level of survivorship and find some people who actually went through what you through and experienced what you experienced, because you're not alone. And thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. My name is Tara Woodlee, and I am the president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. It's an organization that gives survivors and their families that have lost a loved one to domestic violence access to a community that really understands the journey that they face. We hope this episode impacts you. And whether you're a survivor or you're a family member, you may want to learn more about the topic. Hopefully, it's helping you in some way. Also, make sure you click the subscribe button below and the bell right next to it so that you can get notified when the next episode premieres.